examples of best practice in outdoor and nature recreation. So as a result of our work on this stage 1 situation analysis and market research, we came up with some emerging concepts of possible propositions for Umeras peatlands, and we identified target markets and potential sources of funding. So that, if you like, that stage 1 work, the first 3 months of our work, was laid the foundations for the strategic plan. If we move on, thank you. So for over the last 4 months, we've taken that groundwork, if you like, from the situation analysis and market research, and we've drawn together a draft strategic plan. And that has looked at a concept for Umeras peatlands, which we'll elaborate now in a few minutes, a funding plan, indicative income projections. We've looked at some of the appropriate governance model, and it's a flexible approach, as you'll be seeing as we move forward throughout the project. So this has been if you like, the pulling together of 7 to 8 months work, and that's where we're at this stage now. So we move forward now, having looked at our approach, to maybe allocate 5 minutes or so to setting out some of the strategic context here, the background against which this work was undertaken. Thank you. So, as no doubt you in the community are well aware, Bordamona is currently implementing a rehabilitation plan for Umeras Bog. Bordamona itself has recognised the proposal for Umeras Peatlands Park and stated in their own rehabilitation plan that the long-term amenity could include walk and cycleways on the bog, as well as lakes, a bog railway, and a visitor centre. So obviously, when that statement was made, there was no clear indication as to the type of mix or the emphasis that would be given one way or the other. But that was recognised at the outset of the rehabilitation process. Thank you. So if we look, and we thank our colleagues in FIRS, the biodiversity consultants, for preparing these next few slides. In terms of the site itself, we're looking at 300 hectares in overall area, and it's approximately 2 kilometres long by a kilometre and a half wide. The majority of which is bare peat with pioneer cutaway habitats on the periphery. There are important designated sites of the River of Barrow and River Nore, SAC, to the southwest, and then the Grand Canal National Heritage Area to the east. Desk studies and field surveys undertaken by FIRS to date have shown Umeras Bog and its environs to support a wide variety of rare and threatened species, and we look at more of those now over the coming slides. Thank you, Eddie. If you'd move on. Yeah. So the rehabilitation works at Umeras will create, sorry, if you go back, yeah, the rewetted bog will create significant new habitats in areas away from the public paths. There are many bird species that have been recorded, including the curlew, the lapwing and ring plover, the golden plover, nationally important flocks recorded in adjacent farmlands, hen harriers, which I've seen myself on regular visits, along with sparrowhawks and kestrel, and indeed 300 hooper swans feeding on the Barrow SAC floodplain to the west of Umeras Bog. So it's a very, very important habitat from a bird ornithological perspective. Moving on. there are, apart from the bird life, there are important rare and threatened species, including the marsh butterfly. And then in terms of plants, most significantly, the marsh fragrant orchid, amongst others. So just looking at some of the site itself and the landscape conditions, we'll look at that now. And I want to thank our colleagues, Dermot Foley Landscape Architects, for the next suite of slides, which they've prepared. Thank you. So, as you'll see from these perspectives that have been prepared by Dermot and his colleagues, there are a variety of potential activities which depend on the spatial context. You look at that top left slide, for example, there's workshops, existing industrial workshop and parking facilities that provide a starting point for consideration. Then you've got open, extensive peatlands, and then you can see the level changes from woodland and peripheral peatland and areas with potential for open water bodies. So there's quite a diverse spatial context as those photographs would indicate. Moving on. One important aspect of it, and we'll be coming back to this as part of the proposition, is the retention of industrial heritage and social history. The site certainly has and had contained an important examples of industrial machinery from the peat production era during the Bordemona times, such as rail tractors that tell the story of the task of getting engineering staff to remote bogland locations, and milled peat wagons for moving the bog, the peat throughout the bogs. So this machinery is an important part of the social industrial heritage, and something that we believe has a value and can be used within the overall proposition. So there is the possibility of looking there at the top left. You see the industrial, the shed, as it's known, and below that on the bottom left, the peat tippler. Many of you will be familiar with this, and then the retained rail tracks. Quite a lot of machinery that has the possibility of being retained and repurposed as part of a wider proposition and an experience that doesn't, if you like, neglect that aspect of social history. Now, I'd like to move back from the context to the looking at what has been happening on the tourism and recreation side. I don't have to tell everybody attending here tonight that COVID has had a major impact on tourism in Ireland, as it has had throughout the world. But nevertheless, what we've seen is governments, and Ireland has been no different, in turning to the domestic market to try and address some of the gaps that have been left with the lack of movement and travel by international visitors. So the latest trends are that it is likely to be 2026, about 4 years from now, before overseas tourist arrivals recover to their 2019 levels. In 2019, Ireland attracted an estimated 9 million overseas travelers, and it's only when something like COVID happens that you can see the extent to which Ireland and rural parts of Ireland have relied so extensively on tourism. It will recover, but it's going to take time. And in the shorter term, Ireland, like many other countries, will be more dependent on domestic tourism demand, and indeed the demand from our near neighbours in Western Europe, and that's not to exclude Great Britain. So what we've seen, and these are not just patterns here in Ireland, but internationally, in response to COVID-19, from a tourism point of view, there's greater consumer concern for personal well-being, understandably, air quality and clean environments. There's a desire for open spaces and a preference for active holidays. And Fáilte Ireland's strategy is committed to accelerating domestic tourism and transforming outdoor tourism and reducing carbon footprint. Now, allied to that, the current situation is that Kildare is not seen as particularly unique tourism destination. Now, there are opportunities, and a tourism cluster approach comprising Umeras Bog, the Barrow Blue Way, and the Church of Oak, together with the two towns of Monasterevin and Rathangan, can deliver innovation and certainly play a role in strengthening the appeal of County Kildare as a tourism destination. And I hope as we move forward, you'll see how not only Umeras Bog, Umeras Peatlands Park, but together with its partner projects, can play that transformative effect. Thank you. If we move to the next one, Eddie. In the associated area of outdoor recreation, interesting things have been happening there too. What we found is that the national planning framework is now supporting outdoor activity initiatives in a very positive way. As no doubt you've seen yourselves, walking and cycling, and this was happening even in advance of COVID, walking and cycling are increasing in popularity. And therefore, Umeras Peatlands Park is very well positioned to benefit from this upturn. Furthermore, County Kildare and the Eastern Midlands region has a growing population. There's significant aging and active demographics that should form a target for future outdoor amenity developments. Investment will be needed to meet the increased demand for outdoor activities. The Barrow Blue Way is a significant outdoor tourism and recreation development for the region. And as we're saying, a collaborative approach between Umeras and the Blue Way can be mutually beneficial. Importantly, the last point here, we can't let it pass without stating the potential educational role that Umeras Peatlands can have as a resource for both primary, secondary, and indeed the third level sector. I'd like to draw your attention and share with you some of the research slides that we had as a result of our consultations and the research undertaken. We asked a number of questions here that is fed into our strategic planning. And that is the question was, what do you see as the competitive advantage or unique selling proposition of the Umeras, Monasterevin and Rathangan area? And what came through very strongly here was the response there at the top of the list. Its proximity to the Grand Canal, the Blue Way. That was seen as the, if you like, the main competitive advantage. And whether we're working here as we are currently on the Umeras Peatlands project in County Kildare, or whether you're working on a project in County Mayo or County Cork or further afield as we've done overseas, every time you're working with a destination, you say, what is your competitive advantage? What makes you different? What's the standout? And this is what the research is coming back saying to us, is that the proximity of Umeras Peatlands to the Grand Canal Blue Way, that represents its competitive advantage. So obviously you would expect us, which we have done, is to take cognizance of that. Moving on, we asked, obviously the community, Eddie and his colleagues, Liam and and the other members of the committee have, even before we got involved in April of this year, they had undertaken quite considerable work in preparing a draft concept. They'd done some preliminary consultation and information sharing with the community. And we asked then as a next question, what aspects of the original vision do you believe should be prioritized? And coming through strong, there were two things that came through strongly, and they certainly can be sort of taken together, brought forward together. First of those was nature and biodiversity. The peatlands were seen as an important habitat, so that the community and others, the stakeholders, the state agencies that we spoke to, have given this priority, saying this is something that should be given priority, nature and biodiversity, together with outdoor activity, including cycle trails, walking, and so on. And then you've got a number of other elements coming in, I would say, in a supporting role, such as the social history dimension, which you mentioned earlier. Now, we prepared a list of about 12 possible ideas and concept, and this was a test marketing exercise. We asked the consultees and the respondents, which of these ideas concept for Umeras Peatlands Park would you be most interested in, or indeed would visitors, in your opinion, be most interested in? And what came through strongly are the ones that are highlighted in blue there. I won't list them all, but because you can see them there. But for example, you had the idea of a cycle trail linking the bog with the Blue Way and then on into Monasterevin and Rathangan. That's responding to the growing interest in cycling. Walk hills around the bog itself, maybe typically on our, sorry if we could, the idea of school tours, the provision of outdoor viewing points, guided nature walks. The re-wetting process itself, I think, is a subject of great interest now with the whole climate change and what's happening. So you can see there's quite a lot of ideas there where people see, yeah, you can take those, but really what's coming through strongly there is the idea of providing in a way that doesn't impact negatively on the habitat and the nature setting by providing cycle trails and walking trails, and not just on the bog itself, but linking the bog in with the Blue Way, and then the bog and the Blue Way linking in with the two towns of Monasterevin and Rathangan. And indeed, on our second visit, my colleague Kevin Cronin and I, we took our bikes down and we cycled around the area, and it's a very, very suitable area for cycling. Obviously the appropriate interventions will have to be put in place. So final question here is, what are the potential significance of Umeras Peatlands Park in terms of tourism and economic impact? Two things coming out here strongly. People saying that the opportunity to create linkages and a product cluster potential. So many of the people that we spoke to here would have been involved in strategic planning, policy development, and they could see that here's an opportunity, not just of one project, Umeras, but for Umeras to partner with other projects that are now in the pipeline, such as the Blue Way and Ballykelly Mills in particular. And together, their role of Umeras and the other projects in enhancing the appeal of this Partick Kildare. So in summary, before we move on to the kind of the strategy outline itself, is from a stakeholder perspective, the proximity to the Barrow Blue Way is seen as the unique selling proposition of Umeras, Monasterevin and the Rathangan area. Nature, biodiversity and outdoor activities are proposed as the interventions that should be given priority. The interventions that people would like to see include nature conservation measures, the creation of outdoor activities, including bog walks and cycle trails, circuits linking Umeras with the Barrow Blue Way and Rathangan and Monasterevin, and then not forgetting social history as an important theme. But interestingly, even at that consultative phase, this theme is coming through, the recommendation to us as consultants is that consideration should be given to developing the project on a staged or phased basis. And indeed, that's a recommendation that we have taken on board, as you'll see. Thank you. So we've prepared a vision, a draft vision that underpins the strategy for Umeras Peatlands. And what we're saying here is that, I'll pick up some of the key words here, but Umeras Peatlands Park will be a unique attraction and a leading nature-based and soft activity destination in Ireland's ancient East region by 2030. So that's only 8 years away now. It'll offer a range of diverse experience, from tranquil bog walks to cycle trails and rehabilitated peatlands, linking in with the Barrow Blue Way and the towns of Monasterevin and Rathangan. And together with the two projects which I mentioned, the Barrow Blue Way and the Church of Oak, it will represent a core component of a vibrant new tourism cluster. And underpinning all of that is the implementation of a collaborative approach involving communities, together with the estate agencies of Bord na Móna, Coillte, Waterways Ireland, and all the time underpinned by best-in-class governance structures designed to respond and evolve as the project matures and contribute to Ireland, to a reduction in Ireland's carbon footprint. So if you like, that's a vision of where we want to get to, where we see the project getting to over the next 8 years to 2030. So how do we do that? So if we move forward now, Eddie, thank you. So the strategic approach that we're proposing to try and deliver that vision would be based on the following principles: a cluster development, walks, trails and circuits, zoning, and a phased approach to the project. And the project then, apart from that, will also be positioned as a gateway to the Midlands. Thank you. Next slide. So let's look at the recommendation for cluster development. So what we're saying is the full potential of Umeras Peatlands will be realized through its positioning as a core component of a tourism cluster. The components of the new Monasterevin and Rathangan tourism cluster will be Umeras Peatlands, the Barrow Blue Way, the Church of Oak Distillery, Monasterevin Town, and Rathangan Town. So what is the cluster definition of a tourism cluster? It's a cluster development, can be a grouping of attractions and activities in a geographic area, accessible via route, or a grouping of attractions and activities that are linked by a common theme or interest. That's the definition. So it has all of the credentials, if you like, to be able to deliver a cluster. This will be an innovative, strategic approach to tourism product development and marketing. It'll be based both on thematic and geographic linkages, delivered through a network of walks, trails, and circuits linking to the components. And it'll be underpinned, it's not just a physical thing, but it'll be underpinned by a collaborative and partner approach to tourism planning, development, and marketing. And most importantly, it'll create a critical mass of experiencing, a critical mass of experiences which will result in a step change to the tourism landscape in West Kildare. So there'll be enough between the 5 elements of the cluster to not only attract but to retain people in this part of the county. Thank you. Next slide, please. So one of these, apart from Umeras itself, is the Barrow Blue Way, and an economic plan has been prepared, was launched a couple of months ago, as you may well be aware. And the plan is to include an objective in the draft plan to support the development of Umeras Peatlands and to explore links that can be created between Umeras. And indeed, Umeras has been flagged up in the Barrow Blue Way economic plan as a stop-off point. So the intention here is to fully capitalise, and now significant consultation has been taking place between the two projects and between the strategic plans in relation to the two projects. So that is very well positioned to capitalise on that one. Monasterevin, a plan is being developed for the town of Monasterevin. It is a very, very attractive town where the canal features very, very prominently with the harbour and the old distilleries. And it provides very, very good transport links to the motorway and by rail as well. So the idea here is to link in the Umeras and the canal in Monasterevin. I think we've one on Rathangan as well. Thanks, Eddie. Also located on the Barrow Blue Way, a traditional, beautiful traditional town, and has had a long association with Bordnamona. So we see, as with the Barrow Blue Way, that the Umeras, but also the combining of the two projects together with the Church of Oak, which is predicted to, it'll be an international attractive, predicted to attract 40,000 visitors. We have also spoken to that organisation, and they are very, very keen to have cooperation with the Umeras project as well. So Umeras is very, very fortunate to be moving forward and to be looking at a project at this stage where they're not moving forward in isolation, but they're moving forward at a time when two other major initiatives are about to be launched, and that is the Church of Oak and the Barrow Blue Way. And the three projects together with the two towns will form, we believe, a very, very vibrant cluster. Now, as we said, Rome was not built in a day, and so therefore we see this project being delivered on a phased basis. The first phase we're calling the initial creation phase. This will take about 3 to 4 years. And this will involve the creation of public access, car parking, walking and cycling infrastructure, and visitor information. The next phase will run from approximately the 4th year to the 7th year. That will involve an extension and intensification of facilities on site and a direct link to the Blue Way. And then the third phase of the project, from years approximately 7 to 10, bring us up to 3031, will involve a higher level of investment and a significant move into visitor welcome and visitor servicing. So there's flexibility built into each of these phases, and it will depend on, obviously, factors such as COVID, the demand impacts, what's happening on the Barrow Blue Way and the Church of Oak. It'll also depend on funding availability and partnership cooperation, and the sustainable approach taking into account site and management capacity, which we'll have a look at in a moment. So it's a flexible program. And phase 1, which we talked about, is the initial creation phase, and that's about establishing overall site access there. As you can see, a map of the site. We move on to the next one. These are, I should say, Dermot Foley's, the landscape architect, has prepared these. So in this first phase, we're talking about the first 3 years or so of the project. A key intervention, apart from car parking and access and signposting, is the development of a 2.5k walking route, and together with these, maybe some early first phase sculptures throughout the park. Moving on, we've got some examples of some early possible interventions. These are concepts, as Eddie has said, the Dermot Foley landscape architects and FIRS biodiversity consultants are going to be looking at these in more detail over the winter and into next spring, fleshing out some of the concepts here. This is the peat wagon tippler you might be familiar with. And we're looking at maybe this as a basic area of information sharing. And you can see bicycle stands here. So basic orientation, visitor orientation, and then people will be directed on up over the raised areas of the bog and for the walks. That's bringing in some of the Cuilcha area adjacent to the bog. And we've had a very positive response from our friends in Cuilcha on that land that is adjacent. Thank you. So just looking at a little bit more of some of the boardwalk ideas, the concepts. In phase one, we're talking about low level of intervention in terms of basic food and beverage facilities. And then these will be developed further as the project matures and as the level of visitation builds up. But the key idea is to focus on information provision, making the site safe, opening it up in a soft and without impacting on the landscape. This is an important one because apart from industrial heritage, as there are on many other bogs, bog oak and indeed other timber from going way back, and these present an opportunity for artists, for visiting artists, and that's one of the concepts that we have for showcasing that, both in the form of sculpture on the land, but also in the form of a framework for visiting artists. Now we're looking at obviously phase 2 extension. This will be in about anywhere from sort of years 4 to 7, is the option of establishing a link from Umeras Bog to the Blue Way. A number of different options are being looked at. And if we move on, then to phase 3, as the project matures, we're looking at to link the Blue Way, but walking and cycling only, obviously, via the Cuilcha land and possibly through private land, pending agreement with landowners. So these slides are purely for indicative purposes only. We have to stress that the concept for Umeras Peatlands Park envisages a phased approach over a 10-year time frame. And all of these are going to be looked at in more detail over the winter and into the spring. Well, I mentioned just a few minutes ago about the sort of the arts dimension and education. We see the scope here, apart from sculpture within the park, but also using the workshop, the industrial workshop, as a residency for visiting artists, and providing craft classes, exhibition spaces and workshops. So there's a number of possibilities there. And again, I think it's important that we envisage this happening from phase 2 onwards to phase 3. Thank you. So let's have a look, just a few more slides now, but it's important to take into account that every site, and Umeras is no different, has a carrying capacity. So a threshold beyond which, the numbers, if they're breached, would threaten the sort of the physical carrying capacity and impact on the environment, and also other aspects of carrying capacity. So we've established those thresholds, and the good news is that the visitor attendance projections, the potential, we believe, can be accommodated without threatening those thresholds. So possibly, and it's not an exact science, but we see in the first phase of the project, over the first 3 years, visitation ranging from maybe 20 to 30,000 visitors in the first phase, increasing to maybe 50 to 70,000 as the project matures in phase 3. Thank you. We mentioned governance and organization. This is a critically important part. So obviously, putting in place the appropriate infrastructure, pathways, interpretive signage, making the site safe is all very, very important, as indeed is marketing. And we've a draft marketing plan prepared at this stage. But equally important is ensuring that the appropriate organization and governance is in place. And initially we see a technical advisory group being established, involving various representatives from including the landowner, representatives of Umeras community development and other experts, advisors. And the landowner, as you know, is Bord na Móna. We would envisage a plan whereby Bord na Móna would lease the land to a trust that established called Umeras Trust, and that could be a small body of trustees, anywhere from 2 to 4 or 5 maximum, and their only role would be to oversee the responsibilities and the conditions of the lease. The day-to-day operation would be organised and the responsibility of Community Development Committee, CDC, and they would manage the day-to-day operations. The good news is that the project funding landscape is very positive for the moment. And the phased approach allows for growth and is linked into the availability of funding. Where do we see the main sources coming from? Well, we see the Just Transition Programme itself, Fáilte Ireland as a source leader, and regeneration funds and European community funds. So that's on the capital side. We will also propose on the operational side to tap into employment schemes through TUS, Pobl and other community employment schemes. Now, the funding landscape is to change on a year-by-year basis, but given what we said at the outside with the focus on the outdoors and on activities and climate change, we believe that the project is very well positioned to avail of funding as it moves through the phases. I think we're reaching the last couple of slides, Eddie, and thank you for your patience on this. Our overall conclusion is that the evidence and the conditions are there for a clear opportunity to create a successful and sustainable project at Umeras Peatlands Park. The key factors are the Barrow Blue Way. If the Barrow Blue Way did not exist and the plan would have not been put in place, proposition. So that is of critical importance. Also, the post-COVID-19 desire for outdoor experiences on open spaces, nature and environment, the increased demand for walking and cycling, the demographics, the aging and active population and proximity to population centres, and the just transition and peatlands initiatives nationally. And most importantly, what we found is very strong stakeholder support and a strategic approach to the project. So I think we've covered most of that. It's probably taken a good 10 minutes longer than I had envisaged. So apologies for that, but happy to hand back to Eddie, and then I'll stand by to happy to answer any questions. And we can deal with that later, Eddie. Maybe you might return to that roadmap as we proceed further. Thank you.
Hi, Peter. Thank you very much for that. And just before we go into the questions and answers, we just wanted to present our financial position for Umeras Community Development in terms of transparency for our donors and funders. And Liam Murphy, who's on our committee and who's a chartered accountant, has prepared this balance sheet, which basically shows our income and expenditure. So our income to date has been from GoFundMe, 8,531, other donations, the grants from the county councillors, from Noel Connolly, Anne Connolly and Kevin Duffy have all given grants from the local property fund that they have. Now, directors' loans, we've had to pre-fund. What happens is the Just Transition Fund and Kildare Leader pay in arrears. So we have to pay the consultants up front and then reclaim the money. So the directors have had to loan Umeras Community Development €27,000, which hopefully we'll get back from the donors. And we've also had income from drawing down the first Leader grant and the Just Transition Fund. Our expenditure to date has been on the consultants, Tourism Development International Fairs and Dermot Foley. For artwork and brochures, that's Claudine Brennan from Monasterevin did the website and the brochures, and for our insurance. So that's a full account of our funds. No money has gone to any of anyone else or any of the directors or anyone else, and we'll be providing full accounts, and you're welcome to make any detailed queries, but that's as transparent as we can be. So just to say that we wanted to move to questions now, and I would ask people to use the raise hand function in Zoom. If you look at reactions, you should be able to click there and raise your hand, and that will allow you then to unmute yourself, and with that then you will be able to ask a question, and either Peter or myself then will respond, depending on whether it's about the strategic plan or whether it's about Umeras Community Development itself. So please, if anyone has any questions, please just raise your hand, and I'll call on you then to unmute yourself. Does anyone want to ask a question there? And you should be able to unmute yourself if you want.
Good evening, Eddie. It's Rory Finnegan.
Hi, Rory. How you doing?
Rory, how you doing? I'm grand. Just wanted to congratulate you and the team for a really, really comprehensive overview of where we are to date. An awful lot of work has obviously gone into that. Excuse me, and just to show a bit of appreciation there for it. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Rory.
Thanks, Rory.
You must have done too good of a job, Peter, and you don't have so many questions. But we are also inviting anyone to write to us if they have any questions and want any information in any detail. There were some concerns voiced at different times about whether Umeras Peatlands Park would impact on local turf cutting, and Bord na Móna made it clear that they wouldn't be blocking the external drains and it wouldn't have any impact. My mother was raising this issue because she cuts turf down there, and it wouldn't have any impact on the turf cutters in Umeras. And in fact, Bord na Móna keeping the drains open really helps the Peatlands Park, because it gives a dry boundary which will allow people to walk around it. Whereas if the external drains were blocked, the bog would have been very wet and difficult to actually access. So that's been really helpful for us. There were other questions around the Umeras Bog Road. This won't be in phase one, it's down the line, and we're happy to talk to. The idea is to improve the road for the community and allow only footpath and cycling, but and to allow obviously the existing turf cutters and landowners, the farmers and quilcha, etc., to use the road. But we don't envisage any problem. But that's only, the Umeras Bog Road is only one of the options for linking to the Blue Way. Obviously, the main option will be via the public road from Ballykelly Locks. So there were some of the other issues that were raised. So I don't know if anyone else has any questions. Everyone is very shy. So maybe people are happy enough with the presentation. And there will be more online workshops from the other consultants, as Peter was saying, in the new year. And FIRS ecological consultants are doing a full year, that's all 4 season biodiversity assessment, which looks at plants and insects and birds and animals. And as Peter was saying, we have some very rare birds, which I didn't know about until I started doing this project. But it's amazing to see the curlew. And there are only about 60 pairs of curlew in all of Ireland. And there were 7 curlew, breeding curlew, located beside Umeras Bog, including 1 curlew roosting on the bog. And we also have hen harriers, which are also one of the rarest hawks in Ireland. And lots of other birds like golden plover. Flocks of 3,500 birds were recorded by the Borlamona ecologist there recently. So it's very exciting to see the bog turn from what was an industrial peatlands now into a wetland area, which will be great for birds and plants and insects and animals. Yeah, there's a question there. Would you like to unmute yourself? Hugh,
yeah, Eddie, hi there, Hugh here. Eddie, apologies. I was tied up with a few things, so I'm coming to this late. Just, obviously I don't want to ask a question that was probably covered off. So I do see that the presentation was recorded. Would it be possible to see that? Will that recording be made available to people to view?
Yeah, we'll put a link to it. We'll put a link to it on our Facebook so people can view the full presentation. And they're also already, if you go to our Facebook, that's Umeras Peatlands on Facebook, you will see a link to the full detailed PowerPoint, which is a much longer presentation. And I've also done a video myself, about a 20-minute video of drone footage of the bog, which shows the bog last summer before Borlamona re-wetted it. It shows it in a re-wetted state as well. So that also will be a good source of information. Thanks to you.
Great. Thank you. And just to echo what Rory said earlier, thanks very much for yourself and the work the other committee members have done in this. I'm sure it's been a considerable amount of work and it's well received. Thank you.
Thanks, Hugh. Yeah, all of the work on this, like all the community groups in Monasterevin and Rathangan, we have the great creative Rathangan Mehel as well, and the Tidy Towns in Monasterevin and Rathangan, the Kayak Club in Monasterevin. There's a lot of voluntary groups going on, and we hope to work with all those groups to develop this project, because the idea of this project is that there will be, you know, more cafes, restaurants, and more people coming into the pubs, more accommodation, to regenerate the towns of Monasterevin and Rathangan. And the Blueway works have reached Umeras Bridge now, so they've closed off the canal bank up to Umeras Bridge. So really, next year we will see the Blueway completed through to Monasterevin from Lowtown, which will be very exciting for all of the communities. It goes at the back of my land here at my house, and we have privileged access to the Blueway, but it'll be great for all of the families who currently can't use the roads, because really the roads in our areas, in our communities, are too narrow and people drive too fast. So it'll be great to have the Blueway as a resource. And then for tourists coming down from Dublin to come to Umeras Peatlands Park and Church of Oak and the two towns. So I don't know if anyone else has any comments or questions.
Hi, Eddie. Just a quick
hi, Anne.
couple of words there. No, look at we enjoyed the presentation. You know, it's all so exciting, and I know all of this is going to take time and money, but it's great to have even so much groundwork done at this stage, you know. And look, we're all really looking forward to this finished product, and I suppose we are looking at the 10-year plan. Just a quick question, Eddie. I was on a meeting today, reference Bridget 1500, you know, and there is a kind of a question mark over the Bridget being born in Umeras, you know. And I'm trying to think, where would we be, do you think, in 2024? It could be 2025. It'd be just lovely if we could do something in around that as well, you know what I mean? You know, it can highlight what we're doing as well, you know. It's just a thought now, just a thought, you know. But other than that, I'm looking forward to this project, yeah. And thanks for the presentation.
Yeah, thanks very much, Anne, and for your ongoing support. You know, there is a number of narratives about where St. Bridget was born. One of them is in County Louth, and the other is in County Kildare. And you know, there were no birth certificates. Nobody's able to prove it. So there's various stories, and shrines have been put up throughout the years. And there's a shrine at Mountrise Cross, and Phil Noons and the people around the cross there maintain that. And it's, you know, it's a great link anyway to the area and St. Bridget. That's all we can say.
Yeah.
So, you know, we have just as much claim on St. Bridget as the people of Louth. And of course, the people of Kildare have a huge claim, as this is where she established her Church of Oak and the name of the county and everything else. So with Church of Oak Distillery and Kildare, you know, I think that we can definitely enhance that tradition. And maybe in the sculpture park, that there'll be some ode to St. Bridget there in the form of some kind of a sculpture.
Yeah, no, there's exciting plans for that as well. And it just, when I was listening to it today, and I was saying, you know, that's another thing we could really tap into, you know, because this is going to be a huge event, a huge international event when that date's not set. So that was just my thinking on that, you know.
Yeah. Liam, you had your hand up there. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Thank you, Eddie. I would just like to say that whereas there are perhaps 4 people on the committee, I don't think the other committee members will be upset if I say this. 90% of the work has been done by Eddie. He's put a huge amount into this project and is the primary driving force behind it. I think he deserves a lot of thanks and a lot of appreciation for the work he's put in. So thank you very much, Eddie.
Thanks very much, Liam. I think as we all get a bit, maybe
you can send a tenner in the post later.
You want to mute yourself there, Liam. But just to say that, you know, I think as we all get a bit older, we want to do something for the community. And I think, you know, Umeras Peatlands Park, I've already had a load of people asking me, you know, will there be a community cafe? Will people able to volunteer out there? And I do think that people are really looking for opportunities to engage with other people in the community. There's a renewed interest in nature. And, you know, it's going to be an opportunity for all the community to come together around a resource that we all own. No one's going to make money out of this project. It's going to be a community resource that's going to benefit the towns of Monasterevin and Rathangan. And, you know, the bed and breakfasts and the restaurants and the pubs and the cycle hire and the kayak hire and everyone else and people doing Airbnbs, it's for the benefit of everyone. So I think we saw the opportunity because I studied bogs in university and have been following Umeras Bog. And when it was being decommissioned, I asked Bord na Móna if they had any use for the bog. And they said they had no strategic use. And that's where the idea came from. But it's been a huge help, particularly the county councillors, Anne Connolly, Noel Connolly and Kevin Duffy have really helped you know, us with resources and support. So I'd like to thank the county councillors and the TDs as well, and senators that have been helping us, and the heritage officers as well, and Bridget Loughlin and Kildare County Council and Offaly and Laois County Councils as well, because the bog is actually partly in Kildare and partly in Offaly, and is just 1 kilometre from the Laois border. So we really, this park really is a kind of a 3-county affair when you look at it. So I don't know if anyone else has any questions. I'd like to thank Peter MacNulty for all his hard work and his team's hard work. They've come down loads of times to the bog and taken time to speak to all the various stakeholders. I think when you look at their full report, you'll be very impressed with the work that they've done. And I think it's very heartening for us as a community group to hear a professional like Peter MacNulty that's been, you know, doing this work for 30 years, including internationally, to say that they really feel that Umeras Peatlands Park is a standout project. And, you know, I think that's going to be very positive in terms of, you know, convincing funders to support this project. So thanks very much, Peter. So I think that, you know, if nobody else has any questions, I think we can wrap it up. We will continue to post information on our Facebook, and we will be inviting people to more online workshops in relation to the biodiversity and the design. So more work to be done, hard work to be done. But, you know, this project is not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a number of years to develop. And we really appreciate you coming to this online meeting tonight. And we really hope soon to have community meetings in Monasterevin and Rathangan where we can meet people face to face. So that's what we all hope for. But all I will say is, if I don't see many before Christmas, you know, happy Christmas to everybody, and happy New Year. And we'll talk to you again next year and bring you more information on this project. Thank you very much.